So, what is the concept of waifu? This is a topic in anime fandom that has stood the test of time as something a lot of anime fans have at least been introduced to the idea of. And to me, it's conceptually one of the most important things for an anime fan to even consider because the concept of it is more complicated than you might initially think. And today, I'm going to explain it in the best way that I can, and I'm going to use the experience that I just had watching Mushoku Tensei's, very disturbing run of episodes this season, as sort of a propellant and sort of the influence behind this. So, let's get into like why I initially wanted to talk about this because I've been sitting on this topic for quite a while, but I just needed the right push. So, I'm not really concerned about the history of waifus and the subject matter. I'm more concerned about how we, as the viewer, interpret these characters on a conceptual level. So, if you were to say, like, oh, there's a different concept behind the tsundere or the kudere, I'm not I'm not really interested in that. I'm just interested in the basic idea of attachment to a fictional character. And I will explain all of the bits and pieces, but I just want to surround ourselves with the idea that people can attach themselves. It doesn't have to be romantic. It can just be a genuine or general likehood of a character, and that's where we're sort of moseying. So I think that the declaration aspect of this is my waifu, guys, or like this is who is my favorite female or male character has fallen out of fashion because it's sort of like still considered a wacky topic to consider a fictional character and then proclaim it publicly or to a acquaintance or a friend that hey, this is my waifu. They're going to look at you very strangely. Um, Even today, after decades worth of cultural progression and complexity, it's still something that you still would be looked at and you would be like, "Oh, okay, that's chill, man." Uh, but personally, I don't think I've ever been asked this hypothetical question before because it's just so absurd. And I don't really have any friends who are concerned with the idea of, hey, bro, who's your waifu? Like, no one in my circle or no one in my like general area is going to be asking me that. And I can pretty confidently say that uh, they're not concerned about who I care about in terms of characteristics. But that isn't to say that plenty of people all over the world categorize and speak on aspects or concepts related to their waifu. And so I want to say that everyone's waifu is their waifu for different reasons, obviously, but not because of physical characteristics sometimes. Many people, would be dumb to say that they are attracted to their waifu for physical characteristics because these characters don't have any physical characteristics. They don't live beyond the ink on paper. They don't live beyond the pixels on your computer. They're not physical in the way that we actually have a physicality in reality. They're just physical in the realm that they exist in. So we are sometimes more asking about the question of personality more so, the characteristics that relate to how they behave. So here's the dilemma behind such an idea. And this is a very tough concept to grasp, so try to listen to my wordplay. We are attached to an artist's idea of an entity, right? An artist looks at an entity and then puts their own ascription on it. And then another layer of our idea of that entity. So we take that artist's ascription of that original entity and add our own idea of what it means to us, right? And when I say entity, I say it because initially I don't know if these things should be ascribed with people terms, When artists get their inspiration for certain characters, maybe it's just not from people. Maybe the artist is just seeing like a perfect deer or a perfect snake, right? Let's say he's making a snake girl character, but more emphasis on the snake than the girl. The main idea behind it is not even a human ascription or a human element to it. There's no human element because it's originally a snake. And that's what I'm trying to get at. But I will break this sort of thing because clarity, talking about this and just calling them entities the entire time is a little less, clear. So let me just summarize this point so we are fully understanding of where I'm, at. It's entity to artist, artist to paper or computer or whatever they're drawing on or creating on, right? And then paper or computer to us, the viewer, the audience. So again, these waifus can be, a snake girl, or it can be sometimes just pure concept, which is what happens in Hoseki no Kuni. The characters are just pure conceptual psychological beings, you know. So when we ask who is your waifu, a lot of things can be brought up in accordance to your tastes. And I want to bring up a couple of ideas that might pop into your head right away. Let's start at the preliminary gate where instant thoughts for a waifu pop up. And this is all attributed to what shows you actually watch. If you only watch yaoi shows, chances are you don't even have a waifu. You have a husbando. And comparatively, if you only watch Yuri shows, you will most likely only have a waifu because the strict genre attached to the show you're watching offers only that type of character. But if we zoom out and pan over to the regular trashy light novel adaptation, it becomes a lot more easy to understand because that is meant to be far more generic and baseless, and pretty much the entire point of a trashy light novel adaptation. It's pretty much the black-haired, socially inept reject, and he's pretty much indifferent towards the opposite sex other main character, and then the array of the same cutout of people for the rest of the cast. And I think for the sake of this video, uh, as I said, clarity, we should probably ascribe male and female to these characters, even if they aren't people. I just want to be generally non-complex with this because it's sort of like a non-issue to me. Because waifu and husbando are gendered labels. Like the essence of those labels makes them gendered. So it would be easier to grasp if I did that. And I'm just, I the entire time I'll talk about waifu, but just know that I'm including husbando and anything else as well. Like this is just a broad, encompassing thing. So in general, something is popping up in your head, most likely as a result of the shows you watch. Um, On the other hand, the next gate presents you with a problem because now it's up to age. Age is what people immediately lock onto here. Uh, when you announce that waifu and when you're deciding who your waifu is. Because let's be honest, nobody cares who your waifu is, like personally, until she's underage. Then people are starting to look at you funny or starting to look at you like a bit more weirded out. But before I get ahead of myself, let's talk about what age actually means within the scope of waifu discourse. So, let's say you only watch cute girls doing cute things shows. Chances are they are either in school and they're young girls doing stuff. And so begins the dilemma. The only type of characters in these shows are underage to begin with, so there was no possibility of you choosing a character that was over age. It's just them, doing random things and then having fun, going to I don't know, like a tea shrine festival or something. Like they're only this type of character, and that's the dilemma. So, telling someone that you like a character that is underage in the context of the shows you watch or the context of the author's idea of that character is not liked by people, believe it or not. Because if you say to someone that, oh, this 1,000-year-old demon lolly character is my favorite, and she really offers a lot of nuance. Like, a lot of people are not gonna like that answer based off the fact that she is, you know, uh, generally going to look pretty much the exact same way in a lot of people's minds. You don't even have to tell her the character or tell them the character. If you say 1,000-year-old demon lolly, they already have the idea of what that even means, and they already are like sort of their opinions and sort of how do I explain this? The stakes are lower for you, or the respect is lower, maybe. So I say this under the assumption that we're taking age as an actual consideration with fictional drawn characters, which has a big difference to regular fictional characters. Because there is a strict difference to wanting to have, you know, a relationship or a connection to Hermione Granger from the early Harry Potter movies, and wanting to have a relationship with Thousand-Year-Old Demon Lolly. Because one of them is an actual person. That's Emma Watson. Anyone who declares their love for Emma Watson in the early Harry Potter movies is definitely a bit more scary than Demon Lolly Guy. Like, that is undeniable. But that's not to say that we should just forget the Demon Lolly Guy. I'm just trying to draw a relevant equivalency between the two based on fictional reality. What do we see in this fictional reality? The Lolly demon in this fictional reality is 1,000 years old, but doesn't fit the picture of what a 1,000-year-old person would look like. They're not gray-haired. They're not like old and wrinkly. It's definitely just a small, childlike looking character that sort of looks like a demon. So this ascription that the author puts on the demon lolly is different to our idea of what this character could look like in reality. And that's kind of the artist's job, to twist and bend reality and sort of put their own artistic approach to it. But it doesn't make sense, right? Because 1,000 years old is literally impossible by human standards. So that's why it's a demon. So the point I'm trying to make is that drawings cannot be ascribed age in reality, but in fiction they can. But either way, it will not matter because the drawing is not aging in reality. Emma Watson, however, is aging in reality and can be ascribed age in reality as well. Therefore, it's easily more off limits than the Demon Lolly guy. Because let's try to think about it like this, right? I think Emma Watson and all the kids in the Harry Potter movies were like not exactly their age in the fictional universe compared to their actual, but they were still children. Like, at the end of the day, Emma Watson was ascribed, let's just say in the movies she was like ascribed the age of 13 years old, but she was actually 15. Either way, it's still wrong to fetishize that. Either way, it's still wrong because there's an actual person, a human child behind the character, whereas the demon lolly is ink on paper. So there's the equivalency. So this might, be getting too far off where I want to hit the mark, but regardless, here's the end of the point. The demon lolly character, regardless of fictional age, is not something a lot of people would pronounce or, say, this is my favorite character of all time. But if you do it, let's be clear that the specific mention of this character will be looked upon, will be frowned upon. But I think you already know that. So, I mean, you choose your own poison here. Uh, for me, right, I have a sort of likehood for these sort of slice of life cute girls doing cute things shows. And I love the dynamic and character dynamics that Yui Hirasawa and Ritsu offer in K-On! Because it's just such a complex and interesting play off of comedy and sort of characterization. But pronouncing them as my favorite character isn't as bad as Thousand Year Old Demon Lolly because there's an actual basis and character foundation that is more agreeable than something like that. So there are like sort of misequivalencies in this as well, where there's specific cases where it's just less appealing, or I guess, yeah, appeal is the correct word. So what happens to the guy who says, I don't want to say my waifu is Demon Lolly anymore, and I'm gonna just go to the next best one. So let's just say he changes his answer to Misato Katsuragi from Evangelion. Even if her age is fictionally ascribed higher than the demon law, or not higher than the demon lolly, but she looks according to her age, it's still a falsehood because again, she can't literally age. The only thing that is able to age is the product. Evangelion will age over time, but the characters will never age, and that's the difference. So enough of this demon lolly nonsense. Let's move on. Uh, let's talk about the attraction to fictional entities because this is also relevant to the topic. I think this angle is more lighthearted because it depends on the simplicity of the person. If you like booty, you like booty. It's it doesn't really get more simple than that. Unless of course you want to complicate it and introduce other factors. Then it becomes, less simple by definition. So if you're a non-booty lover, then you probably like something else. Maybe it's personality and mannerisms of a character. And, obviously not a bad choice, but what does this mean about you? Again, let's consult the three layers I was talking about earlier. You are currently ascribing a connection to a pixel on your computer that was spawned from an artist who had their idea spawned from something else. So can pixels who go through that many hoops and layers have real personalities that people can latch onto? Well, history has told us that yes, it's definitely a sure thing that over time, these people have been able to ascribe romantic ideals to these characters and build them in a way that fits their relationship or whatever. People fall in love with their waifus all the time. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's like not a niche thing that people do, but it's definitely something that happens. So a little background on like where I come from for this like sort of subject. I grew up thinking that anime fans were just all neckbeards with fedoras hugging body pillows and buying samurai swords. And, to me, coming to this point where I'm sort of talking about waifu in this really complex and sort of way that not a normal person who just enjoyed the medium for entertainment would talk about. But that's where I'm coming from. Is that I just did not understand the fetishization and the fantasy behind why people enjoy this type of stuff. So it was a big culture shock to me that people could be attracted to drawings, and I found that idea eventually kind of a fun thing to analyze. There's no point to this. I just wanted to bring it a part of the discussion because by choosing a character, you're attracted to that character in particular on some level. We just, as a spectator, to your pillow hugging self, we don't know what those personality or connections are, but we sort of are just accepting of the situation. To me, I feel like eventually we'll get past the point of like this false physical presentation because the waifu obviously can't exist beyond the pixels and can only exist as like a body pillow or something or there are more Japanese ways to do it, but let's just keep it simple. There's obviously going to be an advancement in this field of some sort so people can love that specific character in a more intimate and personal way in the physical realm beyond just doing that. So, another part of this is saying the right thing to some people. You know, Sometimes you might have a crystal clear answer in your head of what waifu you like, but it might damage the idea that people have of you, so you just switch it. Let's just say you're up against a diehard Mayuri fan from Steins Gate, and you are also a diehard Kurisu fan but you're not exactly the most like combative person. So you just change your answer and you just say, "Oh yeah, Mayuri's my favorite character as well." And this part isn't that serious for normal people. No normal person is gonna be like, "Oh, I gotta go to the a battle to the death with this guy." He said Kurisu is the best character, and Mayuri. I know Mayuri is just the best. Normal people don't have these arguments, but for sake of this, let's just say you just want to be a nice guy and you don't want to start anything, so you just switch your answer. The stakes are incredibly low, but still, sometimes that might be the case. So let's talk about waifu as a Western phenomena. So in the West, we only have the form of fetishization that is known as stanning. And now, when people form a connection to a celebrity, it's more or less a fictional entity because they will never see that person most likely in real life beyond the scope of entertainment or TMZ. Their perception of this artist or celebrity is what they produce as entertainment. Maybe that's an album or maybe it's a movie. They don't know them beyond the scope of their art, of their medium or whatever. Uh, it's why people attach their relationship to an artist with a certain performance rather than the artist itself sometimes. And that's not to say that you can just not like the character outright. Sometimes you just like the character they represent. You don't have to like the person. But when I think about Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm relating my like for him in accordance to the performances he's portrayed over time. You know, I'm not exactly familiar or interested in what he does in his love life or what he does in his personal life because that's not interesting to me. What is interesting is how he portrays himself on the screen. And now, where I relate this to waifu as a fictional attachment is that it plays to core emotional or visual appeal, both of them too. Both of them, the Leonardo DiCaprio and waifu, it plays to emotional and visual appeal, but the stipulation is that waifus are completely fictional in every way, except for the person voicing them, which is a direct influence over the character, but it's still like something that's not considered too heavily, I think. Leonardo DiCaprio exists in real life, as we know. So the waifu has no human element other than that voice actor who is, putting their own spin on it or whatever. Now remember, by the time it gets to the viewer, there's three layers that the character goes through, but adding that voice acting layer just sort of complicates things, so I want to just keep it to three. So now we get on to the to the one that I think a lot of people know where I'm going with this. Pornographic purposes. Let's face the reality. A lot of people's attraction for a character is based on or comes from a sexual desire to be with that character and the thought of being with that character in a more intimate way. Now, this speaks to levels of just unreachability, and this unreachable connection interests me because it follows the same logic that modern relationships can also align with. My generation, the Zoomers, are quite fond of their Valorant e-dating and their matching duo usernames. His poop, his or her pee, or his poop, her toilet, or something like that. Uh, the thing is that we want to take away is that the virtual space has offered a way for people to get intimate with people through the guise of the character they portray themselves to be online. And maybe they're a bit more confident online, a little bit more rambunctious than they were in real life. And they have really great passions that can only be shown online. And that's great. Uh, this concept is taken to the next level with the realm of waifu because the online relationship with a waifu is non-existent. They can't interact with you beyond what they already said in a voice line that you may just be repeating over and over. Uh, and at least until the two people make it a reality for the Valorant e-daters, the other party could just block a person and say you don't exist anymore. While the waifu standing in your computer can never go away as long as you just Google them, but they will never exist. They can never meet you physically in real life. So that's sort of the connection here. Similarly, waifus follow a similar line of attraction because you fall in love with the concept of an entity, but when they don't exist, it's sort of clear that leaving your house and leaving the realm where they do exist will show you that they just cannot exist in the physical realm. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you just don't believe that, but that's what's happening. So, again, the main difference is that there's no personal touch to a waifu and they're incapable of speaking to you. Unless, of course, you bring into the discussion sending $20 on a Twitch VTuber stream, you know? For most waifu, there isn't a personal connection, but sometimes with the realm of VTubers, there can be a personal connection because they actually do interact with you as long as you send them money. Uh, so beyond that, you can still ascribe a VTuber sort of your sort of fetishization or your connection, but still they're not within your reach, is what I'm saying. Maybe if the VTuber did a face reveal and like sort of had a fan meetup, then they're in your reach. But still, they're typically not going to do that, so they're just not able to be in your reality. So so in both relationships, the e-daters and the waifu, you can love this entity online and in this space, but you have to try your best to make it as real as possible, and just one of them is just not possible to make real. Um, So now it goes even further when we discuss the pornographic purposes of these characters. And the strangest element to a waifu is the concept of sexual attraction, because as we just saw, you just cannot put the character into reality. So it's kind of a weird concept that someone would be sexually attracted to a character that just physically cannot connect with their base primal instinct. So this desire can only be acted upon one-sidedly, but to that end, the user has a lot of options nowadays to make their waifu a bit more appealing in that field. For one, you have a massive amount of doujinshi that artists create to basically ascribe the character traits and ideas that most likely would never be in their actual behavior, but it's fiction, so they just make it the sky the limit. They make the sky the limit in this case, and they just give them whatever they need to make it more attractive for the user to have a more interesting connection with them. Comparatively, as I said, documakers or body pillows, most of the physical element here is mostly your imagination doing the work. And beyond the basics of what I just mentioned, the realm of sexually charged content and its items involving a waifu in general is pretty broad strokes and covers a lot of fetishes, especially if you live in Japan. There's a lot of things you can do to make it as real as possible, but again, not real. Uh, it makes me wonder, do the people that buy this stuff for the physical element have their brains wired to be sexually attracted to a concept or their makeshift physical being? Because I want to draw a difference between the two, because the concept is purely how they exist in their mind, including the characteristics a person would change or enhance to make them more for them. Maybe the user is like, I imagine this waifu with a Brazilian butt lift, and in comparison, right, the makeshift physical appearance is a differing reality because now the character has supplemental material. This is what I am in reality, you know? You can imagine that I have a Brazilian butt lift, but it's not true in reality because the Dakimakura can't be ascribed a Brazilian butt lift physically or like I guess you could imagine it, but still it's just not going to be the same. So the Dakimakura in that stance, if you just leave it alone, will just stay that way forever, and that is your or that is your connection to that character. So maybe there's not much of a difference, but I do think it is an interesting point to bring up. What gets a person to the point of that level of attraction, you know? So that's about it in terms of what I can come up with according to how we interpret or I guess, not we, but I interpret waifu as a concept. So yeah, that's it. I don't know. I don't got nothing else to tell you. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was, sort of interesting or maybe pique your interest towards the topic. And now I will announce who my waifu is, just to make it clear and concise as to what we're dealing with. My waifu is your mother.